no, I don't know what you're pointing to, but it does. It replicates exactly the situation under 1983.
Sir Ivey's going to talk himself into being for this pretty soon.
I withdraw a point of order.
Gentlemen, gentleman's time is expired. The gentleman from North Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually oppose this amendment, and I'll tell you why. And the chairman may remember this from an old time in oversight in 2018, where a lot of different things were flipped, and we were walking into the hearing on facial recognition, and he asked me if I was ready to go, and I looked at him and I said, yeah, but I'm going after the Republican witness. I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to the First Amendment, and what happens here is the bureaucracy outlasts the presidency. I've had the same fights 5 years ago with Attorney General Barr on 702 that I'm willing to have with Attorney General Garland on 702. And you can look at it. And 702, and people who, searched on people who downloaded Muslim prayer acts, using facial recognition to identify people who were protesting in front of the U.S. Capitol, participating in Black Lives Matter protests. The CDC is buying data to find out if you were going to church during quarantine. We're about to have AI come into this mess where you can take 5 individual points of data and tell you exactly who everybody is. We have millions of dollars going from the government to universities to tech companies to censor true information. Not disinformation, not lies. They call it malinformation. And the representative from Wyoming and the representative from North Carolina know that I have been very cautious about this legislation. I'm not particularly fond of private rights of action. I'm not particularly fond of issues that really make trial lawyers money and don't actually back into protecting rights. But the reality of this is that it is going on in significant places. And when we have agencies spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money to filter it through the system, to censor true information, not only is that a violation of the First Amendment, but is incredibly condescending. It's incredibly condescending to the people who are looking at it. And we've had thousands of conversations about 230. We could have a huge conversation about qualified immunity reform, because the problem with it is if you turn everything into a fact instead of a legal issue, you're going to have sue and settle set up around every small department that exists from one end of the country to the other, because you can never get out of the case. And you're going to have insurance companies that end up into settlement agreements. And what you're really going to do, they're not going to sue the New York Police Department. The New York Police Department is going to deal with it. They're going to sue the Golden Valley County Sheriff's Department in North Dakota. And then in order to do that, you're going to uninsure and deal with all of those issues. But this goes on regardless of who the president is. It went on under President Trump. It goes on under President Biden. It went on under President Clinton. It went on President Bush. It went on under President Obama. The tools and the abilities to do this, and the absolute, what I think is the misinterpretation of the Blunt case about what is actually government action versus government coercion, is worthy of having this conversation. I'm for radical transparency. Radical transparency. And this is the best way I can see that we get to it, because it's happening every day. Combined with privacy in the digital age, these are the two biggest questions that face our country as we move forward. What does the First Amendment look like when everybody's dealing on platforms that have 230 protection? What does privacy look like when we have third-party data collection and AI that can run that data in an immediate basis? And then I would just say this on the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, because I am not a 1983 action expert, but the remedies of the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment exist, because when you end up in these places, and you can talk civil versus criminal, but I get to challenge the Fourth Amendment. I get to, as a criminal defense attorney, I get to do those things, and we get to show that. And if you have a prosecutor or a member of the Federal Bureau of Investigation or any officer anywhere that continually violates Fourth Amendment, the system takes care of it, because the judge will no longer give a warrant when that officer appears in front of him. A jury will no longer convict people when that officer. Hold on a second. We can do this back and forth 1,000 times. There is no action that starts with a First Amendment violation. There's only coercion. There's only censorship. There's only moving it through 3 different chains. It's almost like laundering the government's coercion into it before it gets from universities to tech companies to doctors to whoever it is. And we have to have more confidence in our constituents and more confidence in the American people. The best cure for bad speech is always more speech. And I think our government has forgot that. And I don't care and I don't care what letter is behind the name of the president in charge. And with that, I yield back.
Well said. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from California, gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
I just want to add to add to Mr. Armstrong's very solid arguments. There's a reason freedom of speech is enshrined in the very first amendment to the Constitution. It's because it's the foundational freedom upon which our democracy is built. There's only one way to tell truth from lies, or good from evil, or wisdom from folly, and that's to put the two side by side and trust the American people to know the difference. And that requires that every citizen has the unfettered right to express their opinions, assert their view of the facts without fear of censorship or punishment. Now, that doesn't mean their opinions can't be denounced vigorously in the strongest possible terms by others, but it means that this free exchange of viewpoints is essential to assure that the good and the true and the wise rises to the top. And it's exactly this freedom that is now under such profound attack in our time. It began with the IRS persecuting Tea Party members, which had a chilling effect on the participation of so many citizens in the political process. I know of some today who stay as far away from politics as they can because they're scared to death of being put through an audit based upon their viewpoints. And this administration is proliferated into the abuse of the FBI and the Department of Justice. It's manifest in targeting parents who are protesting school policies, protesting election procedures, and expressing their religious viewpoints. It's extended to suppressing viewpoints over absolutely vital public questions, such as the shutdowns during COVID and the origins of COVID itself. And it turns out that those viewpoints that were systematically suppressed were the factually correct positions. It extended to interference in several presidential elections now, including the open debate over the contents and authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop, which polls tell us played a decisive role in the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. This is absolutely fatal to a democracy. When the Democrats say our democracy is under attack, they're absolutely right. It's under attack by them. It's the attack that they have waged on every person's freedom of speech that strikes at the heart of democracy because it interferes with the process that guides a democracy. You know, for every right, there's got to be a remedy. Freedom of speech is the most fundamental right of our democracy, and it is under unprecedented attack, and every citizen deserves a remedy to defend their right, and this bill gives it to them.
Well said.
Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I think the question is we're on the gentleman's amendment from the gentleman from North Carolina.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, having listened to the debate, I don't believe agreeing to this amendment would enhance the prospects for the bill. I think it would, in fact, go the other way because people would be concerned about the presidency and the vice presidency. I just don't think it adds anything, and certainly not when the proponents of it are saying that they don't intend to support the bill anyway, unless it's a totally different bill, which is outside which is beyond the scope of the hearing. And so